In the tapestry of history, certain individuals emerge as harbingers of darkness, leaving an indelible mark of horror upon the canvas of human experience. Among these figures, few are as haunting and as sinister as Luis Garavito, a name that sends shivers down the spines of Colombians and reverberates as a chilling, cautionary tale all across the world. Often referred to as the Beast, Garavito's journey from a troubled upbringing to becoming one of the most prolific serial killers in history paints a chilling portrait of the abyss that can exist within the human soul. A troubled childhood, seeds of desolation. Luis Alfredo Garavito Cubillos first drew breath January 25, 1957 in the humble town of Genova, Colombia. His birthplace, tinged with hues of poverty and destitution, set the stage for a child marred by hardship, abuse, and instability. Born into a family grappling with financial challenges, young Garavito faced a tumultuous upbringing. His father, characterized as abusive, added a sinister dimension to his formative years, leaving an indelible mark on his psyche. His early exposure to a harsh reality coupled with his familial strife served as a crucible for the emergence of a disturbed and troubled individual. The seeds of violence were sown during these tumultuous years, as Garavito's early life experiences imprinted upon him a tragic narrative that would lead him down a path of malevolence. Early signs in the prelude to horror. As Garavito entered his teenage years, disturbing signs began to emerge. His cruelty found expression in acts of sadism directed towards animals, a grim precursor to the horror he would inflict on human beings. This early penchant for violence manifested in a disturbing lack of empathy, as if he were traversing the precipice between humanity and something far more sinister. These red flags, though faint at the time, foreshadowed the chilling horrors that would later define Garavito's legacy. A tapestry of abuse, anger, and darkness was being woven within his psyche, gradually setting the stage for his transformation into one of history's most notorious serial killers. The reign of terror and unfathomable cruelty. From the late 1990s to the early 2000s, Colombia bore witness to the reign of terror so grotesque that it sent shockwaves through the nation's collective consciousness. Luis Garavito's modus operandi was to prey upon vulnerable young boys, often those living on the streets, already victims of a harsh and unforgiving world. Disguised as a beggar or a sympathetic stranger, he lured these children away with promises of sustenance, money, or employment. Having snared his victim in a web of deceit, Garavito subjected them to a living nightmare that defied comprehension. The cruelty he inflicted knew no bounds, as he tortured, sexually abused, and eventually murdered these innocent souls. Autopsies conducted on the bodies of his victims revealed unspeakable horrors, signs of prolonged suffering, evidence of sadistic rituals, and the imprints of malevolence that transcended the realms of human comprehension. A shocking revelation in the hunt for justice. For years, Garavito managed to elude the grasp of justice, leaving a trail of missing children and shattered families in his wake. It was only in 1999 that the scale of his crimes began to unfurl as the bodies of numerous victims were unearthed. The realization dawned upon authorities that they were dealing with a serial killer of unprecedented proportions, a grim specter haunting the very heart of Colombia. In 1999, Luis Garavito was finally apprehended, and the confession that spilled from his lips during his trial sent tremors of horror throughout the nation. He calmly recounted the details of his crimes, admitting to the murder of over 140 children, a number so staggering that it defies comprehension. The true scope of his atrocities shattered the boundaries of human imagination, casting a pall of darkness over a country that would never forget his name. Trial, sentence, and a controversial outcome. Luis Garavito's trial was a somber affair that captured the sorrow and anguish of countless families torn apart by his actions. Found guilty of the murder of 138 children, he was handed a sentence that reflected the gravity of his crimes: 1,853 years in prison, a symbolic figure representing the depth of his malevolence. However, Colombian law's 40-year cap on sentences meant that he could potentially be released after serving only 22 years. A paltry tribute to the lives he callously extinguished. The leniency of this sentencing ignited a firestorm of outrage, sparking heated debates about the effectiveness of Colombia's justice system. Families of the victims demanded justice and closure, and the nation grappled with the horrifying reality that a monster, like Garavito, could potentially be set free. Impact, reflection, and the nation's resolve. The legacy of Luis Garavito cast a long shadow over Colombia and the world stage. His name is a chilling reminder of the fragility of innocence and the depths of malevolence that humanity is capable of plumbing. His heinous actions forced society to confront the vulnerability of street children and the urgent need for systematic reforms to protect them from exploitation and harm. In the wake of his crimes, efforts to memorialize the victims and raise awareness about child exploitation and abuse have gained momentum. Advocates, families, and organizations tirelessly work to ensure that horrors inflicted by Garavito are never forgotten, and that meaningful change emerges from the darkness of his deeds. In the aftermath of Luis Garavito's capture and sentencing, the shockwaves of his actions reverberated far beyond the borders of Colombia. The international community looked on in horror and disbelief at the magnitude of his crimes. The gruesome details of his reign of terror laid bare the depth of which a human being can descend, forcing societies around the world to confront uncomfortable truths about the potential for darkness that resides within all of us. The story of Luis Garavito also prompted a sobering examination of the systemic failures that allowed his reign of terror to persist for so long. Questions were raised about how a single individual could evade detection and continue his killing spree without being apprehended earlier. The circumstances that led to the vulnerability of the children he preyed upon underscored the urgent need for social reforms, the strengthening of child protection mechanisms, and the provision of avenues for support and shelter for those at risk. His legacy served as a somber reminder of the imperative for law enforcement agencies to remain vigilant, to heed the warnings of early signs of violence, and to collaborate across jurisdictions to prevent such horrors from occurring again. Furthermore, the case ignited discussion about the intricacies of criminal justice systems worldwide and the delicate balance between punitive measures and rehabilitation. The psychological underpinnings of Garavito's actions were also subject to intense scrutiny. Experts and scholars grappled with the complexity of understanding that drives an individual to commit such heinous crimes. This exploration into the darkness and the corners of the human mind provided valuable insight into the factors that contribute to the emergence of individuals capable of inflicting unspeakable pain and suffering. Luis Garavito's journey from a tumultuous childhood to becoming a monster that haunted Colombia's nightmares is a chilling testament to the abyss that lies within certain human souls. His reign of terror, etched in blood and brutality, shattered lives and communities, leaving scars that time can never fully heal. The stories of the innocent lives he extinguished serve as a stark reminder of society's duty to protect the vulnerable and ensure that justice prevails, even when confronted with the darkest corners of the human psyche. As Colombia grapples with the legacy of the beast, it's a stark reminder that the pursuit of justice and the protection of innocence are imperatives that society must never abandon. So guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. For more interesting content, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.